always ever appreciative of your support for our initiatives to raise awareness of Islamic finance within our community. So next up, we have our Fireside Chat, navigating rising costs of living and upholding community values. Now without further ado, let me introduce our first moderator of the day. Salihin Samsudin reads Public Policy and Global Affairs with minors in Economics and Entrepreneurship at Nanyang Technological University. He is a President Research Scholar at the university, where his research areas cover international relations, foreign policy, and diplomacy. Previously, he has also served as a researcher in Governance and Economy Department at the Institute of Policy Studies, Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy at NUS, focusing on Singapore's fiscal policies and national reserves and global tax policies. Salihin has previously worked in higher education management and policy and secured internships in the government sector, including the Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Health, and Ministry of Manpower. Salihin is presently the Chief Operating Officer at RizqX and serves on the Executive Committee of Islamic Finance Singapore. With that, everyone, please welcome Salihin onto the stage. I would now like to present our second speaker for the discussion, Professor Dr. Khairudin Aljunied. Dr. Khairudin Aljunied is an associate professor at the National University of Singapore. He was formerly professor at the University of Malaya and senior fellow at Georgetown University. He was also a visiting professor at Columbia University in the USA Fulbright program in 2013, as well as the University of Brunei Darussalam from 2022 to 2023. He is regarded as one of the 500 influential Muslims in the world in 2024 under the Scholars category. With that, please welcome Dr. Khairudin Aljunied onto the stage. I will now pass my time over to Salihin, who will be moderating the session. Enjoy!
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera and good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, on behalf of Islamic Finance Singapore, let me first welcome you and thank you all for coming to the RIS Symposium 2024. This is in fact the second time that we are holding this symposium for our community, and I am very happy to see many returning faces. We are indeed privileged to have two distinguished guests with us joining for today's discussion. Firstly, we have Mr. Zhulkarnain Abdul Rahim. I have followed Mr. Zul's political journey since the beginning in 2020 when he first took office. And I must say that he is one of the most dedicated parliamentarians that we have in our community, and a very humble family man with a genuine heart that is rooted in the community. And we also have with us Dr. Khairudin Aljunied, in my view, one of the most intellectually engaging academics in our community. As a student of political science, learning about how societies work, I've always appreciated how Dr. Khairudin actually articulates his ideas. Although I must say I've followed your lectures online, this is in fact my first time meeting you. So welcome to both of you. So we have about an hour or so for today's session. What we'll do is we will engage in a conversation with one another. I will have them share their thoughts. And afterwards, we will invite questions from everyone gathered in this room. As our discussion proceeds, you're welcome to send your questions in Slido along the way, and I will do my best to have them answered. So without further ado, let me first start the conversation with the observation that it has come to a very difficult time this year for the world. In many respects, we have really entered uncertain world, both economically and geopolitically, and the world is getting more unpredictable, volatile, and more fragmented. And peering into the future these days can be very unsettling, and the prospects of strong growth have receded. This is happening at a time where jobs are coming under threat. And for Singapore, one way to weather the storm is to invest in sectors where quicker growth can shore in for the rest of the economy. And for the workers, the only guarantee for you to stay in a job is to pick up skills and employees of the future can look for. And for our families and for our seniors, which are closer to home, they are actually representing the most vulnerable parts of our society. And there are immediate issues which needs to be addressed. And it was against this backdrop that DPM and Finance Minister Lawrence Wong actually announced in the Budget 2024, and he has reiterated that this is in fact just the first installment of the many policies in the future to come. And certainly the bulk of this budget were targeted at addressing social issues, from inequality to cost of living concerns. And for many others in our community, we are feeling the pinch. Perhaps for a start, Mr. Zul, could you synthesize what are the key measures for this Budget 2024 that aim to support Singaporeans, particularly for the Malay Muslim community through these challenges?
Yes, okay. Assalamualaikum. Thank you, Salihin. Actually, those kind words no need to say. But I just want to say another kind word with Prof. I've been with him undergrad. Last time round was, I remember we at NUS Arts Forum Musola with all Arwah and some of our Arwah friends. It's truly an honor and nice to see a familiar face from the past. And it's actually because of all those conversations in the past that actually help us shape how we are thinking right now. So I'm truly thankful for all the long usra and all that. And at that time we were all still undergrads, I think we were doing postgrad. But that's the basic thing is this. We need to make sure that we continue thinking about things, talking about things. And the budget itself is not a solid creature. It's an aspiration by the current government to make priorities for the near-term, mid-term and long-term future of Singapore. So you can use what it is for the Malay Muslim community, but ultimately it's for the Malay Muslim community to chart its way forward within the context. And that's how the Forest SG conversations are shaped. So how can Budget 2024 help the Malay Muslim community? It helps, but the Malay Muslim community will help itself much, much better if we come together and see what we want out of it. There are three things that Salihin mentioned about: pick up skills, obtaining the jobs, and also the families as well, and benefit from the job. Picking up skills will not guarantee you the job. Unfortunately, that's the reality. Going for training and to say that I have a cert, I have a diploma, I have a degree, you need to give me a job, will not guarantee you. Having a job itself will not guarantee you that you will stay in the job, because there is going to be changes in cost-cutting measures, growth sectors, sunset industries, and then we need to move towards it. So the statement, the budget itself is putting forward a few aspects of this, because we cannot allow our community to get disenfranchised by saying, hey, but I went for the, use my skills future credit, but still never get a job. I work there for 20 years, but there's no price for loyalty, and this is how I got retrenched. So we need to make sure our community remain resilient. How we can do that is we have this various aspects. For the workers itself, there will be skills future level up programs, top up in the skills future credit. But all this credit, we need to make sure that those are spent wisely in the training that will assist our workers to get into the jobs of growth, and this can be in the sustainability sector, in the green sector, in digital economy, that they can then translate those skills into other sectors as well. So the new skills future mid-career training allowance as well, that one you can ask our booths behind, and how this they can subsidize for a full-time diploma. And the government for the first time is will introduce a temporary financial support scheme for workers who become involuntarily unemployed. Involuntarily unemployed, code word retrenched, right? So I remember my predecessor in AMP, Jasmine, who brought me to AMP. He was an NMP at that time. He was talking about redundancy and retrenchment benefit. So conversations that happened 15 years ago, 20 years ago are now more pressing right now, and there are changes coming in. And you can see for that, so this is from picking up skills to jobs, and from the jobs itself, once you have to work, how to stay on the job is, of course, work towards more uplifting our low-wage workers, and there is a refinement for the workfare and progressive wages. More announcements will be made next week by MOM, and so after the staying in the job, we need to make sure that we can best protect our workers as well. So there will be an anti-discriminatory legislation for the very first time that will be introduced in Singapore. Previously, it was more of a guideline by TAFEP for the unfair employment practices. So we can see that in our Malay Muslim community, I don't believe that there is a particular issue that is a Malay Muslim problem. I went into this in all of my work, whether it's legal, whether it's community, AMP, Kasarauda, SMCCI, whatever, even Yellow Ribbon. I call it the mainstreaming of the solution, because to then find a national solution for what in essence is a socio-economic problem will actually assist us to tap on various grants and allow more partners to come in to support what will inevitably be of benefit to not just this whole of Singapore, but also our Muslim community. I helped run Kasarauda about 10 years ago. It is a vulnerable women's and children's home. It's the only one out of 4 crisis shelters in Singapore. When it was first tried to set up, the previous mufti we consulted. We didn't have any Muslim shelters. 2 were run by Anglican churches, 1 run by secular. So there's nothing for Muslims. So Muslim women who are battered, abused, children who are sexually abused, violated, they don't have space to stay, and we worry about their food, about their faith, and all that. So it becomes a problem for us. But when it's run by Muslims, we make sure that it's run by Muslims, but meant for humanity. No beef, no pork, all halal, must go to school, must get a job. Basic corporate partners came in and said that you guys are you a Malay Muslim organization, are you doing this? But no, we are solving a particular gap in the community, in the nation. It's mainstreaming the solution. And it also shows that we Muslims are meant for humanity. And for the budget, I think you can try to look at various aspects, the workforce and also the for the housing aspect. I helped a lot of MPS appeals for housing. There's a lot of our Muslim families very young, so they don't have a house. They wait for PTO because of COVID. There's a slowdown, so they need to wait for that flat. And still, in the meantime, they have to stay with their in-laws, and there's a lot of friction. So this year's budget, DBAM Wong actually introduced a voucher for couples to actually go get rental flats in the open market, because the HDB rental market is very inundated with demand. So you can go to the open market, and that also helps reduce. What we can do as a community is to make sure that when we rent out to fellow Malay Muslim for young couples, not just Malay Muslim, young couple, we don't tekan them, we don't squeeze them, right? We do what's fair and take the voucher and then help them. And this is the aspect that we can do as a community. I can go on for a budget, but it's too long. But the essence of this, every time people say budget, people think the free gifts and the Majula package. You and I don't qualify with Majula package. But then it's about the sentiments, the statement. Do we want this direction or not? The sail has been set. We know where the wind is coming from. And the headwinds, do we want to row towards it together? That's the one that we can. Yeah? So stop there, because I see a lot of questions coming. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Zui. Keep the questions coming. Prof Khairudin, your first thoughts on the budget?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Firstly, thank you for inviting me for this session with a very old friend of mine. We were in campus together. So I will take from what he said just now during the keynote address that iron cuts iron. So I think my job today is basically to give a little bit more of a critical perspective of not only the budget really, but the situation of our community vis-a-vis the kind of problems and challenges. I don't like to use problems now, having 6 kids myself. There's a problem almost every day. So we want to take it as challenges and realities that we have to face. Now, again, I'm not here to talk about the budget comprehensively, but I want to look at it from the micro angle and then try to come up with ways by which we, people who are interested in finance and in our community, try to figure out ways to move forward. So now, the budget has basically 6 items. So we'll talk about it, I think, as we have our chat, and I welcome more questions from both of us on this issue. There's financial aid, there's supporting families, there's skills future measures, CPF changes, property-related taxes, aging well. I've lived in the US, in the UK, in Malaysia, in Brunei, in some countries. I must say first, not really as a Singaporean or someone who's working with National University of Singapore, that this is a very comprehensive package that is born out of research. One thing we need to understand first as Muslims in Singapore is that we are living in a very empiricist state, where the government, before they make any budget, whatever proposals, they have gone through all the facts and figures, and they have listened to every single viewpoint that they can reach out to. Still, I want to focus in on 3 issues. So just want to throw this out first, because I've been studying the stats since I came back. Now, the first is actually the issue of financial aid. We know that household income in Singapore, and here I'm going to give a bit of figures, have rose from 10,869 in 2002 to 10,099 in 2002 to 10,869. So relatively Singaporeans are basically earning more, right? And this is a medium across the board. But when we zero in into the community, a different picture emerges. Now, again, our statistics are organized along the lines of Malays, Chinese, and Indians. I'm critical of that kind of mode of looking at the Singaporean society. I always believe in what I call as the ethno-class perspective. Class and ethnicity must be brought together because there are rich Malays, there are also very poor Chinese and Indians at the same time. So we need to factor that. But when we look at the household income, again, we don't have the latest stats. In 2020, we know that the median household income from work amongst the Chinese was $7,972, right, every month. Amongst the Indians, and I think Indians must be very happy, it's my mother's side of the family, it's 8,500. So within 4 years, that figure must have rose to about $2,000. So Indians must be earning at least about 10,500 per month or 10,700, and Chinese probably around 10,000 flat per month, which is in line basically with the median household income. Now, if you look at the Malays, we are looking at 5,704 in 2020. Even if the Malay household income from work has arisen to $2,000 more, Malays are still lagging behind by $3,000 in comparison to all other communities. So these are figures from our own statistics, which basically means that Malays in general are not earning enough vis-a-vis the national median income. So that's the first thing that we need to understand. And that's why the financial aid is crucial from the government. But I'm going to argue that it is not enough. Why is it not enough? Because when you look at the households, and again, I have 8 people in the house and I'm still living in HDB. That's why my neighbors are always giving me free food every other week. Kesian, dia banyak anak kat rumah. And I have 8, so I still qualify for mendaki free tuition for my kids because technically I'm still below the national household average. Now, Malay households continue to have larger households on average in comparison to other communities. There are 3.7 people on average in every Malay houses in comparison to Chinese 3.1 and to Indian 3.4, which means that there are more people living in Malay households and earning lesser income than other communities. So again, I'll get to my bigger point as we look at these stats. I want to begin with this one first. Why I think that the budget has to be approached or tweaked slightly differently. The second is actually the issue of supporting families. Now, if you look at the stats again of Malays, there are more Malays who are in prison than all other communities. And I think our ministers have spoken about this. There's not only a problem of a larger prison population in comparison to Indians and Chinese, there's also now, as highlighted by one of the ministers, a problem of recidivism. Within 5 years of being in prison, any Malay who has been in prison before, especially in regard to drugs, they would go back to prison again. And the figure is quite staggering in some sense. 50% of those who have been released from prison amongst the Malays would go back to prison again. That goes back to the family. And that adds then to the burden in the family. So supporting families, this is where the budget is actually quite good. Supporting families is actually linked to financial aid. And if any group that requires more financial aid because of the problem of recidivism, people who are released from prison and going back to prison, the Malays need it more than ever before. Now, if crime and law and order is an issue in our community, there's also the issue of bersatu kita tegur, bercerai kahwin lagi. I want to lighten up the mood a little bit because sometimes when you talk about statistics, people are very stressed. We have still a very high divorce rates. Divorce rate amongst the Malays. In 2002, more than around 1,505 Muslims got divorced. The numbers decreased since 2021 because of COVID. The Sharia court was closed, hence people cannot file for divorce. Maybe I want to get the Sharia court to close even longer, but still, if you look at the statistics, I don't have the latest figures for 2023 and 24, we are talking about in the Malay community, every single day, more than 5 people are getting a divorce. 365 by 1005. Even if you round it out, you can say that 4 Malays are going to get divorced today, as we speak, or considering having a divorce, which means other problems that come with it, right? So that's the second point, supporting families. Why the supporting families part is so crucial in the budget. The third one is something that I'm going to end with this, is something that Zhulkarnain has mentioned just now, which is very important for us, is the skills future measures. Now, I agree with Zhulkarnain that whether you take courses or not does not guarantee jobs, but in a study that was done by scholars from the National University of Singapore and NTU, and the study is called the Social Inclusion Study by MOF, they find that one big issue, and this is by Lee Kuan Yew School, Professor Ng Kok Ho, and also Professor Teo Yu Yen, they found, and in their conclusion, they say that it is about having opportunities to education, employment, and work-life balance, as well as access to healthcare. It enables a sense of belonging, respect, security, and independence, and it includes choices to participate in social activities and freedom to engage in one's cultural and religious practice. They have found in this very interesting study that opportunities are, in a sense, scarce, especially for certain communities. We have not gone deep into which community has less opportunities, but going back to statistics again, in the year 2010, only 5.5% of the Malay community has degrees. In the Indian community, it's 36.8%. So every 3 Indians that you see, one would have a degree and another one would be finishing it. Right? Amongst the Chinese, it's 23%. So this is almost my generation and Mr. Zhulkarnain's generation. In 2020, Malays have arisen in terms of the number of graduates to 10.8%. So it has doubled. So I want to say to the Malays, they have done remarkably well in terms of getting degrees. Still, we have been lagging when it comes to other areas. So for example, we are high at the diploma level and post-secondary level. Dropouts from school are still, the percentage of people who drop out from school is still very high. That then goes back to the skills future or the skills training that we need. We need to give skills to Malays below the secondary school level, because if you look at the statistics of people at the below secondary school level, Malays are still very high at 28.9%, which means that every 5 Malays that you see, 1 Malay person would not have finished his secondary school or her secondary school education. Now all these things put together, and here I'm going to sum it up, while the budget is really a welcoming thing, I'll get more coupons to buy things from Sheng Siong and others, I feel that what we need right now is a far more focused approach. And this is not that it has not done before. In the US, amongst the African American communities, the government in the US, especially where I stayed in Washington DC, they have focused approach to manage the problems of a specific community. Now that focused approach can only happen when our MMOs, Malay Muslim organizations, have a larger resource base. To have a larger resource base, this is where this conference is so important. We need to also empower the MMOs to generate income of their own, to make a lot of money. Because a community with the least resources cannot help the community with no resources. Right? And that's why we need to now see how the government, and here I'm appealing to Mr. Zhulkarnain, can come up with an ethno-class approach to the challenges that the Malays are faced with. An ethno-class approach to the budget means that more within the budget has to be allocated to resolving the 3 issues that I was mentioning just now. the issue of financial aid, the issue of family breakdown and poverty within the family, and more importantly, how do we bring up the skills of the Malays, of Muslims in general, of the whole larger Singaporean community, especially those who have not finished their secondary school education. I'm not here to give you a classroom lecture, I'm sorry, but I hope that kind of like summarizes the whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Khairudin. Zul, what do you think of Dr. Khairudin's proposal for an ethno-class approach towards the budget?
So maybe those are the inevitable truth about the statistics, and we can look at it in different classes, meaning first, of course, the recidivism rate. I'm a glass half full kind of guy. So what has happened? In the last 10 years, Malay Muslims are still overly represented in our prison system. You go to cluster A, cluster B, my work with Yellow Ribbon, I go inside and they need more Malay Muslim volunteers as well. But within 10 years, in 2010, there's I think recidivism was 34.1% for Malays. That reduced to close to a quarter, 24.7%. There is a moving of the needle. Recidivism rates are captured in 2 years and 5-year rates. The 5-year is about stable. It's the 2-year one that's a bit more difficult. And actually, and I must say this with all honesty, when I first became an MP, there was this M-Cube initiatives. For the very first time, allocation of government resources aligned with ministerial KPIs. Empirical studies, they should use that, and they make sure that, okay, why don't we use whatever resources that there are, coordinate within the community for that. And I thought, hey, this one macam pernah nampak. Actually, I thought about it. Then I realized it was one of the COMFOR, AMP Community Forum, that we had, I can't recall, but it must be 2017 or 18, and that was a time when I was VC of AMP, and we said that actually the drugs and the reoffending recidivism rate can be tackled, and there was a few strategies that were given by the professors and all the academics. And to do that, you must tackle one thing, which is the family support and the job support. Because for the very longest time, Yellow Ribbon, and it's now rebranded as YRSG, Yellow Ribbon Singapore. Previously, it was called SCORE. Don't ask me what it stands for. It's macam something for re-employment enterprises, a very enterprise business focus. It was focused on gaining employment and employability for inmates. And that must be for our own community inmates as well. They then go into the job market and they would not have the luxury of human capital networks like any other races. And they might fall out from the employment circuit and they might go back to the old ways. So in the community forum at AMP, we looked at both. We actually tracked studies and we made pilot, and it was actually supported by MHA as well. Families, and I saw this beautiful thing. There was a photo gallery of the journey of the family. So we helped the families outside the prison, and we help the inmates inside the prison, so that when they come out, they will have a family that is receptive of them. They will have an employer that will be receptive of them. And there were the last photo that I saw. There were a few photos. One of the photos was actually whole family sitting together with ikan masak kicap together. They just, and that's the staple for them every day. We are moving the needle with bit by bit with a new different approach, which is holistic and is actually targeted for our community, but it's not outwardly said. And the FA focus areas of MQ are targeted at various aspects, FA 1, 2, 3, and 4. now 5 as well. Health, workers, young couples and all. So we will, inshallah, we'll get there. I haven't given up the hope. But I think to have an ethno class directed support can cut both ways. It can put the stark reminder on our community that we are getting the help, but it can also show a more sense of discomfort from other communities. How come they are not getting the help? Because we cannot deny the fact that there are others who also in the other communities that are lagging behind. To answer about the education issue, so the recidivism, the skills and the education issues, the family issues. For the education, for the median income, it's not about our base actually. It's actually about our potential. I truly believe in it. I think we must maximize the cap of earning for our community. Give you a scenario: 3 business at graduates, Malay, Chinese, Indian. If the Chinese works with the family business, the Indian works in a tech startup, the Malay become a teacher, what is the cap for each of them? They all first class honours, but they have a different trajectory. I draw from the Malay Muslim business survey that was done in 2017. About 8 times of Malay Muslim startups below 5 years, they are 8 times more than national average, more than any of our Chinese Indians. And when I say Malays, it's Malay Muslim founders. But they don't last within that 5 years, then they die out. Then we have more growing and matured businesses. And I think we need to help them. So what happened was, there's a lot. So we studied why it was, and actually they became entrepreneurs. They set up their own businesses because they don't want to work in a job that's a 9 to 5 that has a back ceiling, but they don't have the opportunities like any other communities do. So what do? We took all these young entrepreneurs, make sure we make them into an incubator, and there are a lot more incubators for the Malay Muslim communities right now. Now we are seeing a lot with leveraging on technology, leveraging on social media. Their markets not just confined to Singapore but regional and the world. So there is the lifting of the cap, so to speak. We need to do more of this. And when we do that, we empower our community, and I think we can then increase the median. And usually what happens every 5 or 6 years? We have a presidential election. And I remember the recent presidential election, there will be a ethnic base and all that. Why are we so hard pressed to find Malay Muslim CEOs of a certain flowers and caliber? And why is it when we are raising funds, we go to the same folks over and over again? We need to build this. It's not a shame to be wealthy. It's not a shame to be successful. It's actually an asset to the community. And I'll even argue that it is your ibadah, your amanah, to actually do this, to make sure that our community becomes the best. And the first thing, the one the Sabah actually went to Medina is actually to find out where's the market, and then find out what to do. And then he actually cornered the market because he wanted to get the unta, the camel, but then he said, okay, I will buy and sell the camel, but I keep the rope. And the rope is the one that actually controls the market. All the rope, what's called it, steering, is it? Then he's the only go-to guy for all the rope. You all can have the camels that you want, but you need to buy from me the rope. All of this, we can do things. We can make sure that we can lift the median. But it is only not just through the government effort, but through using that as a part and parcel for us to make sure we can uplift the median. I truly believe that I don't like the CMIO approach as well. I argued in Parliament, but they say that it's the easiest way to segmentize and very administratively efficient. I can accept that to a certain extent, but we do need to see what's best for our community. And alhamdulillah, we have seen some movement on the needle, and I think we should still keep at it, and with the budget, not a panacea for everything, but we can control that finance, break down our families and the skill sets. So in short.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Zhulkarnain. And I think Dr. Khairudin also brought up very important points on finances and education, how these are pertinent problems for Malay Muslim community on top of inflation and rising cost of living, and how that translates into budget 2024 and how we can actually glean insights from it. I would like to move my attention to the next order of business, right, which is the regional conflicts that we are facing. And it is something which resonates deeply in our community, the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, how the struggles that are faced by our brothers, Muslim brothers and sisters in Palestine, and it has actually greatly affected our communities here, not just in terms of economic impact, but also emotionally as well. And we are seeing different advocacy groups emerging in different pockets of our society. Recently, I just read about a group of volunteers from our own community who briefly went on a humanitarian mission in Gaza. And one of them is Ustazah Shamim Sultana, who will be joining us in the panel session later this afternoon. Mr. Zhulkarnain, you yourself have been very vocal on the Palestine issue, and you have raised the issue on the war and humanitarian crisis of Palestine time and time again in Parliament, and I thank you for that. But in your view, how has the conflict and the struggles that are faced by our brothers and sisters in Palestine affect the Malay Muslim community here? And linking to the question, is there anything else that we can do more to help them?
Thank you, Salihin. I think we need to always separate the politics from the purpose of it. So the purpose that we raised this is that, and actually the Singaporean approach is to share with the humanitarian situation that's unfolding not just in Gaza actually, but in West Bank and everything. And the Singapore's position, as I learned through it, because we did some research, ask questions, and find out what's the position. We can look at the stated position and whether or not the two-state solution that's been committed will be abided by any parties. But put that aside, what we have done, what we can do as Singaporean is actually to make sure that the politics stop at the water's edge, but the breaching of the humanitarian purpose and all that must continue. And I raised the issues in Parliament because I remember my first question was on, Ramadan as well. Every Ramadan it happens. And this Ramadan is not going to be any different. So we have to brace ourselves that things will escalate, things will be people will complicate things even further. And so we will then have to see it is how we react as community. And the questions I asked was during the raid of Al-Aqsa, how we can, because it's a UNESCO site, how we can preserve that as in our capacity in the world. So Singapore government will do all it can as a matter of foreign policy with a Singaporean perspective. And I think the Singaporean perspective includes our community lens, because this is an issue close to our hearts. But what we Singaporeans can do is to, of course, raise awareness on the issues, and secondly, make sure that we contribute to the humanitarian causes that support the Palestinian people. I think the various fundings and all that, but I myself reached out to Palestinian artists, bought their art pieces, and then go and donate them for the Palestinian Film Fest so that they can raise funds. So in a way, why I thought about the CTC vouchers for a moment that time. I said that if I'm given a CDC voucher, I spend it on myself, I benefit myself. If I spend it on business of a good cause, I support that business for a good cause, I benefit myself. If I buy from a business that supports a good cause that will contribute to a bigger purpose, then there are three aspects of benefit that we do. And it's the whole concept of risk that we do. It's barakah that beyond what you are given. You got to amplify it. And if you wear a kafia, you buy, it's different than you buy from Herbawi from the West Bank factory that was closed for a few months. Last year I bought tons of kafia from Herbawi. It's the only factory that's in the West Bank speaking. I'm not sure whether they still go ship out. But when we do that, we do a positive spin to things. We are pushing people up instead of pulling people up instead of pushing people down. We find ways to support. Some people ask me what's my take on boycott. And they say the boycott is about you not changing yourself and actually taking a stance. Actually, what I believe, whether I believe in boycott is irrelevant. I look at the facts and figures. In certain sectors I've been told, not in Singapore but regionally, it's been effective. About 40% down sales and some 20 to 40%. But what is it effective in doing? Right? Let's say, are they about in a company that's about 25,000 employees, 20% of whom are Malay Muslims. That's about, and they go under that's about 5,000 families that are affected in our actions or whatever. And would that push the needle upstairs in the UN, national stage? Something we need to think about. I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm not saying it's good. I just think that I prefer another aspect, which is whether or not there are people to help. I met an NGO with Ambassador Hawazi Daibi about 5 years ago from Ramallah. And they have this humanitarian effort to bring Palestinian youth who are brilliant to actually get them to study overseas and then bring them to the Ivy Leagues, to the Oxford, the diaspora of Palestine. We can try to see whether we can host these families, these children, these teenagers, mold them. Maybe one day they can be the shining beacons that they can be for not just their country but the rest of the world. Think about ways, and I think there are several things that we can support. So if you are just forwarding messages, posting Instagram stories, what else can you do to effect actual help for Palestinian businesses and people? Because that is a reflection of us as Muslims in Singapore. Because the rest of the world also watching us how we're doing. So hopefully we can continue to do good. Don't give up. Don't stop praying, dua. And I think Ramadan is around the corner, but brace yourself. It's usually the same thing, story all over again.
Thank you, Mr. Zul. Dr. Khairudin, I've read your commentaries previously. Is there a different way that the Malay Muslim community can see this conflict?
Yeah, I think we need to see the conflict in positive terms. Why do I say this? Because in the Quran, Allah says it very clearly, "Ma asaba min musibatin illa bi'idhnillah, faman yu'min billahi yahdi qalbah, wallahu bikulli shay'in alim." That Allah doesn't give a musibah except for that He wills it, right? And more importantly, He will guide people who believe in Allah in the right way. Should they believe in Allah, that all of these things that He has given, there is wisdom behind it. Allah bikulli shay'in alim. Allah knows better than us. So I would always see any catastrophe facing the ummah or facing ourselves in our own lives, any disaster that strikes us as a good thing. So the first point I want to make here when it comes to the Palestinian issue, and I've always made it very clear in any forum that I go internationally that I am with the people of Gaza, I am for peace, but I think we need to change first our grand narrative. The grand narrative that we have right now, the way I see it, is that of sadness. And we must not wallow, or we must not sink into despair and sadness. That's the first thing. The second thing is that to change our narrative, to change our grand narrative, is to see, as just now Mr. Zhulkarnain has mentioned, what we can do positively for ourselves first. I have friends who are from Gaza when I did my PhD in London, and one friend of mine, his name is Muhammad Lafi, which is so kind of like typical Bilal Sham's kind of name, Lafi. And I said to him, what do you need from us? And he said very clearly to me, we don't need anything from you. He says, we can take care of ourselves, but we need you to be taking care of yourself. This is very powerful, these Palestinian people. And I think as a community, there are a lot of lessons that we can learn from the entire episode. That it tells us that as a minority, we need to be an empowered minority. And we must learn from other minorities, including the people in Gaza. Every Ramadan, they are being bombarded. After every Ramadan, they will rebuild again. Did you see it? Their universities get bombed, their hospitals get bombed, and then they rebuild it again, and live their lives again, and try to create again a new society for themselves. This sense of resilience is something that we need to internalize, the grand narrative that we need to have. And this is where I feel, and if there's one thing that you can learn from this episode, is that the community with the most resources can help more people. We Muslims have this whole idea that money is a root of all evil. But if you look at this Gaza episode, money is the thing that can help these people who are afflicted by so much pain. Money is a magnifier of good. And we need to change that grand narrative. We need to use the money that we have to help these people, but we also must manage our anger. So this other thing that I feel that come out of this Gaza issue, that everybody is so angry. Everybody is so charged up, I think we need to take a different approach. Not that we should bring down our anger, we must be angry, but we must channel this anger into a new grand narrative that will bring about positivity. The ayat that I was mentioning just now is in Surah Al-Taghabun, ayat number 11, a very powerful surah. Whenever I have problems that I face in my own life, I'll go back to this ayat, and it becomes a kind of a soothing antidote. That's the first thing. The second is, I think it's also about the issue of objectivity, which is sorely lacking right now. This whole MOE episode is all about being objective. And I think as a community, we must rise above biasness. We must rise above this partial looking at certain issues, not only Gaza, but anything, and go back to facts and figures. That's how I begin just now with statistics, because numbers don't lie. Sometimes people lie about numbers too, but statistics are there for us to make an informed judgment, an informed idea of why certain things happen. Hence, my message to everyone is that use this moment to empower yourself to read and read and read and read. I like what the first speaker said at the end of his speech. He gave all the books that I think he was showing, like 8 books to read. I think this is the thing that we need as a community. We used to have this talk about the knowledge economy. That conversation somehow died out. But I think we need to now revive this again in view of what's happening in Gaza. We need to now encourage our community to be a book community, something that I tried to do in Malaysia, and they are catching up. We need people to read more books, we need people to be informed of what's happening based on facts, and act accordingly based on the facts that are out there, and not act on the basis of sentiments, emotions, and in the end, not come up with real strategies that are concrete where we can help the Palestinians. So a lot of help has been given. Some of them are not coming in. We have a lot of things coming up from our good Singaporean Gilbert Go. he's been updating about what's happening in Gaza. I think Ustazah Shamim was also there, and she was updating to us. A lot of things are happening on the ground, a lot of initiatives are there. Contribute to these initiatives, but more importantly, as you give, and we go back to the Quran again, as you give, never forget yourself. And kadang-kadang kita, we are like this as a community. We like to give, but we forget ourselves. And we must first be empowered before we can empower others. And this is again, something that we need to look back at our community in order for us to respond carefully and wisely to these kind of issues. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Dr. Khairudin. I would like to touch on the questions that have been submitted by the audience. Perhaps the most voted question, what are the urgent government measures on the misinformed situations on Palestinian reference recent case in schools on this topic? I'm sure Mr. Zhu, you have views on this. I've read that you are going to raise a PQ in the next sitting. Correct me if I'm wrong. What are your thoughts on this?
So actually I've been monitoring this since January with a lot of feedback from friends who are teachers. I myself am a parent. I have 4 children, not as many as Prof. But yeah, so they tell me different things. As a parent, I have my own views. I want to make sure that my children are going to take a leaf out of my values, that are my father's values, my mother's values, my wife's parents' values as well, and our faith values. So I think I can understand the emotion on 2 fronts, from the parents themselves and also from the teachers who may feel conflicted then about their own thinking of this. So there are a lot of feedback, and I think there were some slides and all that. My own take, yesterday, yes, I filed a PQ yesterday, and it was to the Ministry of Education. Let me read it out for you. So, how are the lessons on the war and humanitarian crisis in Gaza shared with students in schools? And whether teachers are engaged or consulted before the lessons are made, considering the teachers' own diverse individual views and convictions. And I think I filed it early, and then in the evening there was a MOE statement as well. It's going to be answered around 6th of March, so the following week. So it will be an oral PQ, and there are other parliamentarians that are filing it, hopefully. Because I don't want to be the only one raising this over and over again. So I'm quite lonely. Yeah. But I think it's an important issue as a parent, not just Muslim parent, but as a parent and as an educator. You want to know whether or not how we can do this. Even for sexual education, we have parental consent before certain issues approach the topic. So maybe we need to look at that, how we can better protect our teachers if they are conflicted in this. And I'm an open book. If you have any suggestions or what, you can DM me, you can email me, you can text me. All my residents have my WhatsApp number, 830-54328, 830-54328. You can WhatsApp message me. So anywhere around the world I'm traveling or what, I still receive messages from people understanding the ground. And I think when we look at it, like what Prof said, we cannot be emotional about things. It is an aspect. We need to take care of ourselves and our children. And let's think of it, how we can take an objective view into education for this purpose. Whether they need to cover it in the first place, maybe you have some views on that. Who can cover it? Maybe you can have some views on that, and how it should have been covered, whether with parental consent or not. So that's something, especially for upper primary. My boy is in P5. So he has a lot of questions on this, and I really am glad that this is getting its attention, not because of what, but actually so that we can further refine how we do things. Now the irony is not lost on me, that as we are talking about innovate, or people, they have to be innovative, we have to think about new ways, it is actually our own educators who are faced with this, and they say that no, we want a different way. So the irony is not lost on me that when our own educators have that gumption and say that, hey, maybe they feedback, they realize that how can we better do this? It's not that it's wrong entirely, but they want it to be delivered in a better way. So we should continue doing the best that we can for our children and ourselves. Yeah. Those are the things I can say. I can't preempt what the response will be. I don't control the answers. I can only control the questions that are asked. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Zul. On that note, Dr. Khairudin, maybe this is a question which is relevant to you. Still on the same topic, on finding reliable sources on the Palestinian issue to read up on, because some of us felt some books and articles could be biased. You are a researcher yourself. How do you distill that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff out there, and someone mentioned on the screen, Ilan Pepper is probably the most well-published, and the way I see it, the most objective account. The other one is actually a Jewish historian. His name is Avi Shlaim, Avishalaim. And then of course there's a Palestinian historian. His name is Rashid Khalidi. Rashid Khalidi has a very good book called The 100 Years of War in Palestine. So these are the 3 books that I would recommend, and the authors. Again, when you talk about the kind of books that you want to read about Palestine, don't only read about the conflict, because Palestinian history is not only about the history of conflict. There's a very powerful book, and the title of the book, I forgot the author's name, is Birthing the Nation. How Palestinian women, in a sense, maintain the integrity of their society by giving birth to as many children as possible. Which is very powerful. Giving birth is a kind of ensuring that Palestinians remain alive as a community. So you can read all these books. Again, Mr. Zhulkarnain gave his WhatsApp number. Mine, I can give you mine, but don't flood it. 9226-7642. I used to give my email, hatiku@hotmail.com, but now Hotmail is not, it is hatiku, so it's too cheesy. You can email me Aljunied MRT, says after Pahiriba, 1976 @gmail.com, and we can have a more discussions about this. There's a lot of materials out there.
Right, thank you so much. The next question, Malay Muslim community lacks in volunteering at national level. Not only educated Malay Muslim should involve more. Low social segment Malay Muslim should be encouraged to volunteering. Perhaps Mr. Zul, what are your thoughts on this?
Actually, that's true. On the various national boards, you see orang-orang itu juga. So there's going to be the same, and that's because maybe there's not lack of exposure, but I think there are efforts to make sure that we have honed our young leaders, and there's the TUNAS program on the MMO, which is a leadership program to encourage our upper to higher echelon to do this. And in AMP, I remember previous chairman Abdul Hamid also launched an AMPX, which is an exchange program, exchanging of ideas, best practices, because then you can have leadership within more stable or maybe experienced leadership sharing their own experiences with the up and coming ones. I like the comment about everyone can be encouraged to volunteering, and this because it's empowering. When we go for our Project Dian and MCube, and we're targeting low income rental blocks, we don't just give them handouts, but actually ask what they want to do to contribute for the community, and it's very empowering because then they realize, and it is actually a dignity, a power that we protect for them, and they are part and parcel of the efforts. So if you cannot give your talent, you give your time, you give your treasures, right? So I think these are the things that we can contribute, and you can, in your own sustenance that you've been given, the time and your skills, you can encourage others who are less fortunate to join us, to join any of the Malay Muslim organization, to join the MQ programs as volunteers, as befrienders, because then they can, to make the difference, they can actually resonate as well with the families. And part and parcel of that is to raise the profile of all the leaders, potential leaders in the Malay Muslim community, so that they can then be recognized and also contribute at the national level. I mentioned earlier about Casa Rauda. It started very small, 5 staff and all that. Now our executive director sits on the anti-violence National Anti-Violence Council with MSF, with the key community stakeholders. This wasn't even imagined 10, 12 years ago. But and then having a say, policy papers, making sure that what you see on the ground translate into feedback translate into voices then change to action then are implemented on the ground and felt. So I think smaller times that we say that, oh, it's always transactional. No, it has to be relational. Get people on board. We have opportunities. Our biggest asset for Malay Muslim is actually the people. We got a lot more. We can encourage them to volunteer. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I think because of time limit, I'm unable to address most of the questions. Some of the questions are much more relevant to our 4th and 5th panel, where we have our professionals, where we have our asatizas to come in. And please, if your questions are not answered, please do raise them later. Perhaps to close it off, perhaps Mr. Zhu and Dr. Khairudin Aljunied, could you share some last final thoughts for our community?
I just have one idea that I want to share because everyone here is into finance. Is this idea that, or this practice that is actually within our community for hundreds and hundreds of years, but we have not turned it into something that is, in a sense, sellable. It's called micro savings. Berakit-rakit ke hulu, berenang-renang ke tepian, bersakit-sakit dahulu, bersenang-senang kemudian. It's a Malay saying, which says that when you take your boat across the stream, make sure that you stay within the edges so that you don't sink and you cannot swim. And it's okay to be having a lot of pain at first, because you will get a lot of good in the end. So the concept of micro savings in the Malay community means to save the little things that you can in order for it to be big later on. Sikit-sikit lama-lama jadi bukit. What Malays in the past did, and this is very powerful, I have a book coming up on Sufism in Southeast Asia where I talked about this, how the Sufis, interestingly, the Sufis who were upon the Sunnah, the Sufis who followed the Quran and Sunnah, they encourage this amongst the Malays, where do not spend on things you don't need. Only spend on the things that are necessary. So for example, Ramadan is coming and we start buying new curtains, langsir baru and so on. We don't need it. So we need a community to develop this new paradigm, I say. A paradigm of micro savings. Don't drink in expensive cafes if you can avoid it. If a tea costs $7, don't go and buy it. When you have all of these micro savings, and this practice is not only common amongst the Malays, it is common among model minorities in America, and one of that community, whether we want to accept it or not, are the Jewish community. They're very, very prudent in spending things that are unnecessary. It will add up. So let's see whether how we can think of making this micro saving adat that we had before become something that the community do in their everyday life. Don't buy what you don't need, save as much as possible, and if possible, in the past, my mother likes to participate in what is called as snowman. You have heard it before? I don't think it's alive today, where everybody gives $100 and the money is kept by someone, and then every month somebody will get it. And then there will be one richer person in the whole group, and when they give to that person who deserves it for the month, they will add another $10. So it's not interest, but because I've kept the money for you, I made some money myself, I give you. So we need to have this again. If we have this as a community thing, this micro savings thing, I think we can empower ourselves financially in a more creative way without only depending on mainstream institutions to grow our money. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. Maybe I just add, I like that idea about micro savings and what we can do as a community. I wrote an article on the genesis of Takaful actually. It started out like that, about a community coming together. But beyond, I think you can do some micro savings, and this benefits yourself and your family, and make sure that you take up the skills that you have, the lessons that you share, that you have been shared with here, for your own wealth management and practice, to increase your understanding and hopefully your savings and your capacity as well. But I just want to raise 2 points, and this is about doing something for others, because the savings is for yourself, and then so that you will have more to give for others. There are 2 things that are coming up in this budget, which is the Wakaf Masyarakat Singapura and the overseas humanitarian tax deductions, which hasn't been ongoing for many times. So the Wakaf Masyarakat Singapura, we have done the amendments to AMLA last sitting, and it's not just for Wakaf Masyarakat Singapura. The amendments are for all kinds of Wakaf. The previous generations, if you can see most of the Wakaf along Kampung Glam, on the east side, Muslims who have been successful, and we are reaping the benefits for many generations. Madrasas are built, Wakaf land, masjids as well. So you can see the effort that as a community we can do. With the savings that we have, we set aside something for that. And the legislative framework will then make it easier for you to be part of the Wakaf. Whether it's Wakaf Masyarakat Singapura, or if you are well endowed upon, you can start an endowment fund as well, Wakaf. The second thing about overseas humanitarian assistance tax deduction scheme, that was announced by MCCY. It's 100% tax deductible, and you got to also, tax deductions are a way for you to make sure that you save more for yourself, and take advantage of all the schemes for your businesses, for yourself, for your own income, personal income tax. With that, I just want to say a big thank you. With all the questions that I've seen, and the sharing by Prof and Salihin as well, and the previous speakers, it's truly enlightening. Alhamdulillah. I hope and wish everyone a very fruitful Ramadan, and this is our opportunity to reset ourselves and make sure we reset our community with everything that we have learned today, inshallah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zul and Prof Khairudin, and thank you all for your questions. Please do join me in thanking both of these gentlemen again.
Thank you, everyone. I would now like to invite Muhammad Ridwan to present the tokens of appreciation to the speakers. previous speakers for the invigorating discussion. There are many takeaways that all of us can have from this, but if there is one thing that I wish everyone can start applying is to continue to seek knowledge. As based on the hadith, "Talabul ilmi faridatun ala kulli muslimin wa muslimatin," which means seeking knowledge is obligatory upon each Muslim man and woman. With that, it is time for our lunch break. There's a nice lunch buffet waiting for you outside, which you can enjoy either outside this hall or even at your own place. But please be careful to keep this space clean, okay? And dispose the rubbish just outside the hall. And once you're done with lunch, please do visit our friendly colleagues at the booths behind. And don't just walk around and get to know new people. For Zuhur, you can do your salat at the Musalla at level 3, basement, or best would be to do it at Masjid Wat Tanjung, which is just across the road. With that, thank you very much, and please enjoy your lunch. Oh yes, please come back by 2:30 p.m. Thank you.